Well, hello there. Welcome to another evening with Fisher. Happy Cinco de Mayo. This is still tea, even though it's Cinco de Mayo. In fact, what is Cinco de Mayo even celebrating? Do you know? I know it's the 5th of May, but do you have any idea what the whole holiday is about? Wait, what? Ooh, if you were one of the people that said Mexican Independence Day, you're just wrong. That was terrible. You might want to look it up for future barroom trivia answers. Okay, here we go. We're moving on to Siddhartha, chapter 4. And Siddhartha, chapter 4 is called Awakening. Oh, you can actually see what I wrote in the book there. What did I write? Leaving childhood friend. Oh, that's right. In the previous chapter, Siddhartha left the grove at Jetvana, where he had just met the Buddha, the most holy one, the best teacher in the world. And he said, turns out I actually don't want or need a teacher. And so I'm going to peace out. And Govinda's like, but dude, I'm going to stay here. And Siddhartha's like, cool, man, you stay here. I'm going to hit the road. I'm glad you made your decision. I hope things work out for you. And Govinda's like, whoa, totally ditched me. Jerk. So now we're on to chapter 4, Awakening, on page 37. Fairly short chapter, but this one's really good. And so I'm definitely going to read the whole thing to you because this will definitely line up with your own feelings at some point in the future. And feelings, and his points about feelings in here, critical. When he talks about self-reflection, he doesn't use the word self-reflection, but he talks about self-reflection and the importance of it in order to learn. That's what I say all the time. And that's why he's just as wise as I am. And vis-a-vis, I'm just as wise as Siddhartha. Dude's pretty wise. So, here we go. Awakening. As Siddhartha left the grove in which the Buddha, the perfect one, remained, in which Govinda remained, he felt that he had also left his former life behind him in the grove. As he slowly went on his way, his head was full of this thought. He reflected deeply until this feeling completely overwhelmed him, and he reached a point where he recognized causes. For to recognize cause, it seemed to him, is to think, and through thought alone, feeling can become knowledge, and are not lost, but become real and begin to mature. Siddhartha reflected deeply as he went on his way. He realized that he was no longer a youth. Now, that is a painful thing to realize. You won't have that realization for a while, but at some point you're going to be like, my God, why do my knees hurt for no reason? Why does my back hurt? Why did I slept on a weird pillow and now I feel like I'm dying? Okay. Anyway, Siddhartha reflected deeply as he went on his way, and he realized he was no longer a youth. He was now a man, which means he liked to flex his biceps and chug beers and swear. I don't know. I'm just kidding. That's not actually what he does. He realized that something had left him, like an old skin that a snake sheds. Okay, that's a good simile, but gross. Something was no longer with him. Something that had accompanied him right through his youth and had always been a part of him. This was the desire to have teachers to listen to and to listen to their teachings. Okay, stop obsessing over teachers. We understand that you're moving on, and that's fine, man. That's fine. Let it go. Okay. He had left the last teacher he had met. Even he, the greatest, the wisest teacher, the holiest. Fisher. No, wait. Oh, that says Buddha, actually, not Fisher. Sorry. He had to leave him. He could not accept his teachings, because to accept his teachings would be to live his life, and you can't live someone else's life. Man, you gotta live your life, dude. Gotta live your life. That's the key. Slowly, the thinker, which is how he refers to himself in this chapter, went on his way and asked himself, what is it that you wanted to learn from teachings and teachers? And although they taught you much, what was it that they could not teach you? And he thought, it was the self, the character and nature of which I wished to learn. I wanted to rid myself of the self, to conquer it, but I could not conquer it. I could only deceive it, could only fly from it, could only hide from it. Truly, nothing in the world has occupied my thoughts as much as the self. this riddle that I live, that I am one and am separated and different from everybody else, that I am Siddhartha, and about nothing in this world do I know less about than myself, about Siddhartha. Now that's important right there, because he's saying my whole life I've been learning things. I've been learning math, reading, social studies, science, whatever, how to blend in a crowd, how to make jokes and make people laugh, how to get people to like you. All this stuff, this socialization that we're learning our entire lives. And suddenly, boom, you're like, I know a lot of stuff, but I don't know me. Like, how often do I stop and think about myself? I'll make snap decisions. I will judge things. I will listen to my intuition and my gut, but I don't really think about who I am or where my feelings and opinions come from. What's the answer? Self-reflection, right? Brilliant. That's what makes a wise man even wiser, okay? Self-reflection. Don't forget that. That's why I've said it so many times. It's important. Moving on, kind of. All right. Let's see. The thinker, slowly going on his way, suddenly stood still, gripped by this thought. And another thought immediately arose from this one. It was the reason why I do not know anything about myself. The reason why Siddhartha has remained alien and unknown to myself is due to one thing, to one single thing. I have been afraid of myself. I was fleeing from myself. I was seeking Brahman, Atman. I wished to destroy myself, to get away from myself in order to find the unknown innermost, the nucleus of all things, Atman, life, the divine, the absolute. But by doing so, I lost myself along the way. Like, what's the point of learning if I don't know who I am? How can I teach? How can I survive in the world without knowing how I fit into the world? What's the point? You could be the most knowledgeable person in the world, but if you don't know yourself, then there's no way that you can truly have even a little bit of wisdom, because wisdom is how the knowledge applies to you. And if you don't know you, you don't know anything. Ouch. Okay. Lost my spot again. Typical. Siddhartha looked up and looked around him. A smile crept over his face, and a strong feeling of awakening, the chapter title, awakening from a long dream spread right through his being. Immediately he walked on again, quickly, like a man who knows what he has to do. He had an epiphany. That's not written in there. I was just adding that. Editorializing. Yes, he thought, breathing deeply, I will no longer try to escape from Siddhartha. I will no longer devote my thoughts to Atman and to the sorrows of the world. I will no longer mutilate and destroy myself in order to find a secret behind the ruins. I will no longer study Yoga Veda, Aratha Veda, or asceticism, or any other teachings. I will learn from myself, be my own pupil. I will learn from myself the secret of Siddhartha. He looked around him as if seeing the world for the first time. The world was beautiful, strange and mysterious. Here was blue, here was yellow, here was green, sky and river, wood and mountain, all beautiful, all mysterious and enchanting. And in the midst of it, he, Siddhartha, the awakened one, on the way to himself. All this yellow and blue river and wood passed for the first time across Siddhartha's eyes. It was no longer the magic of Mara. It was no more the veil of Maya. It was no longer meaningless and the chance diversities of the appearances of the world, despised by deep-thinking Brahmins who scorned diversity, who sought unity. River was river, and if the one and divine in Siddhartha secretly lived in blue and river, it was just the divine art and intention that there should be yellow and blue. Okay, I was on here, but now I'm a little lost. He's like, nature's cool, and I never really took the time to literally stop and smell the roses before, because you should do that. Because the more you live in the moment, the more you stop and appreciate the moment, like look around, the more you'll see, the more you'll appreciate. And the more you appreciate, the more you begin to understand where you're literally at and where you're figuratively at. It really helps you to understand yourself better by just stopping, pause, break, chill, relax, and just be alone with your thoughts for a little while. And if you can, do it in nature. Find a tree, find a field, find a river, find a lake, and just chill. It's the best thing in the world. In nature is the salvation of mankind. That's not my quote. The beautiful thing about being an English teacher, I have lots of dead guys in my head, not voices, okay, that's different. But I do have a lot of dead guys in my head, and women, and I can just throw their words out there, and it makes me seem more intelligent than I actually am. See, I know that because I have self-reflected, and I know who Fisher is. Sometimes he's a fraud, mostly he's a good dude. Okay. I have to turn the page. I didn't turn the page. And here's Siddhartha, meaning and reality were not hidden somewhere behind things. They were in them, in all of them. How deaf and stupid have I been, he thought, walking on quickly. When anyone reads anything which he wishes to study, he does not despise the letters and punctuation marks and call them illusions, chance, and worthless shells, but he reads them. He studies and loves them, letter by precious letter. But I, who wish to read the book of the world and the book of my own nature, did presume to despise the letters and signs. I called the world of appearances illusion. I called my eyes and tongue chance. Now that is over. I have awakened. I have indeed awakened and have only been born today. I was today years old when I realized that I matter and life is important and my feelings and opinions matter, is what he's saying here. But as these thoughts passed through Siddhartha's mind, he suddenly stood still, as if a snake lay in his path. Then suddenly this also was clear to him. He who was in fact like one who had awakened or was newly born must begin a life completely afresh. What does that mean? How do you begin life fresh? I mean, you've got your whole history behind you. You can't just leave that behind, can you? How can you start a new life? Because all those things that have happened to you, whether you like them or not, whether positive or negative, they're still in here. They're in your head and they're in your heart and they're part of who you are. So maybe he's still not 100% on the right track here. When he left the grove at Jadvana that morning, the grove of the illustrious one, already awakened, already on the way to himself, it was his intention, and it seemed the natural course for him after the years of his asceticism, to return to his home and his father. Now, however, in that moment, as he stood still, as if a snake lay in his path, his thoughts also came to him. I am no longer what I was. I am no longer an ascetic, no longer a priest, no longer a Brahmin. What then shall I do at home with my father? Study? Offer sacrifices? Practice meditation? All that is over for me now. Now, if that doesn't sound like somebody who leaves college and has become a new person with a new set of skills and a destiny and a path ahead of them, thinking about going home and realizing that there's no longer a place for them at home because they no longer fit into the social fabric of their own home, if that's not a perfect example of that, then I don't know what is. Everybody, when you leave college, or maybe you leave, home after high school, you realize, I don't belong here anymore. This was an amazing place for a long time, and it made me who I am, but I gotta go. I gotta move on. This is not where I stop. This is not my end. This is a stepping stone to my future. And so Siddhartha's realizing that. He's no longer his father's son. I mean, he will always be his father's son, but that's not his role now. That's just a part of his past. Siddhartha stood still. He's doing a lot of standing still in this story. And for a moment, the icy chill stole over him. He shivered inwardly like a small animal, like a bird or a hare, when he realized how alone he truly was. He had been homeless for years and had not felt like this. Now he did feel it. Previously, when in deepest meditation, he was still his father's son. He was a Brahmin of high standing, a religious man. Now he was only Siddhartha, the awakened. Otherwise, nothing. He's just nothing. He hasn't made a name for himself. He hasn't done anything. He breathed in deeply, and for a moment he shuddered. Nobody was so alone as he. Okay, maybe other people are more alone than you, buddy. How about a little bit of empathy here? He was no nobleman belonging to an aristocracy, no artisan belonging to any guild and finding refuge in it, sharing its life and language. He was no Brahmin sharing the life of the Brahmins, no ascetic belonging to the Samanas. Even the most secluded hermit in the woods was not one and alone. He also belonged to a class of people. Govinda had become a monk, and thousands of monks were his brothers and wore the same gowns and shared his beliefs and spoke his language. But he, Siddhartha, where did he belong? Whose life would he share? Whose language would he speak? Who am I? You're a student for so long. You're a child for so long. Once that's over, who do you become? You have to become something, someone. And at some point, you're nobody and no one. You're just you. And what does that mean? I don't know, but that's pretty profound. At that moment, when the world around him melted away, when he stood alone like a star in the heavens, he was overwhelmed by a feeling of icy despair. But he was more firmly himself than ever. That was the last shudder of his awakening. The last pains of his birth. Immediately he moved on again and began to walk quickly and impatiently, no longer homeward, no longer to his father, no longer backwards. That's the end of the chapter. So Siddhartha struck out on his own, and he realized that once he'd done that, he didn't belong to any class. He didn't belong to any group. He didn't have his friend, so he wasn't a leader. He wasn't part of a religious society, so he wasn't a follower. He was nothing. He was just Siddhartha. And I said a moment ago, this is just like leaving school and starting your life. Now, some people start their life after high school, and some people start their life after trade school or community college or four-year college or what have you. But at some point, that's going to be you. You're going to be the person who's standing there thinking, my God, who am I? And my question is, who are you going to be? That's a rhetorical question. I don't want an answer. I just want you to think about it. I want you to self-reflect. Okay? This chapter, as with all the other chapters we've done, I'm going to post a thing on Google Classroom. It's probably already there. It'll have my favorite quote. It'll have the context of that quote within the story and how I connect that quote to the larger world. And I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Find your own quote. Just the glittering gem that shines through this chapter. What piqued your interest or curiosity? Take that sentence, put it on the document that I provide, explain what's going on in the story, and then how do you connect that to the rest of the world? There's no right answers here necessarily. The whole book is available to you, and the whole world is available to you. It's all about your lens and your perspective and your interpretation. So the only way to find the correct answer is, once again, to self-reflect. Okay, you guys know what to do. It's posted on Google Classroom. Other than that, once you're done, and don't work too hard here, I want you to go outside and appreciate nature. Maybe get out of the routine of quarantine. We're kind of stuck in a rut right now, and we don't have a whole lot of lateral movement that we can take. But maybe go outside in your yard or somewhere, maybe a park, and just sit by yourself like Siddhartha did and just be still and just think about who you are and where you are and why you are. Huh? Deep, man. I know. This is why I love this book, because it is all about deep thinking, forcing you so far inside your own self that it's a little bit hard to understand. Okay, that's all I got for you. You guys have a great day. I will expect these all to be turned in by Friday at 11:59 p.m., the one from Monday and the one from today. And I expect you to be safe, to be smart, to be healthy, and to get your butts outside to enjoy the weather while you can, because we're supposed to get a wintry mix on Friday, and I'm just not okay with that. Anyway, peace. Take care of yourselves. I love you. Be good, but not too good. Okay? Take care.